and welcome to Investigation Nation, brought to you by our network of journalists exposing greed, corruption, waste, and failed public policy. I'm Chris Ingalls in Seattle. In this hour-long episode, we're spotlighting some of our top stories of 2025. We begin with an investigation into the death of a man in Louisiana and questions from our team that have now opened a murder case.
I'm David Hammer in New Orleans. In December 2022, a man was shot to death in this downtown hotel room. 6 months later, the case was closed without any criminal charges. That is until I reviewed hours of police video and forensic evidence and started asking questions. Cherie Bell was looking forward to her son returning home to New Orleans in December 2022 until tragedy struck.
Christmas Day was the last day I celebrated Christmas with my son. Didn't know that would be the last day.
The day after Christmas, 29-year-old Nicholas Harrison got a room at the Courtyard Marriott on Julia Street. He went out and got really drunk into the wee hours of December 27th. At 8:30 that morning, he was back at the hotel with his girlfriend, Cachet Shelton.
New Orleans 911 was the location of the emergency.
The first 911 calls came from people in the hotel lobby who watched as a frantic Shelton came to the front desk wearing a blood-drenched catsuit.
Courtyard by Marriott, 300 Julia. I think the lady got shot. She's in the lobby or stabbed or something.
A few chaotic minutes later, Shelton was back upstairs in room 303 with Harrison. He was the one who'd been shot just above his left eyebrow with his own .40 caliber Glock pistol. And now she was the one calling 911 and telling the operator she and Harrison argued about breaking up.
We always fuss about what's going to happen if we break up, but this time it got so serious, and I can't believe it happened. Please send somebody now.
Shelton's first story was that Harrison shot himself.
Where is the suspect now, ma'am?
He's laying on the floor, and it's so, this is crazy.
He shot himself, ma'am?
Yes.
All right, go ahead and take a seat right now.
Police brought Shelton in for questioning. Now, she said they had been fighting and tussling, but she wasn't so clear about who shot the gun.
We were fighting and tussling, and the gun was right there, right? So then the gun got involved.
So what happened? How did the gun get involved? How did it get involved?
Just fuss. That's just.
Did he pick it up? You pick it up?
He picked it up, and then it went from there to that. We fussing and fighting, and then next thing you know, it went off. Literally.
So was he holding the gun?
Yeah.
And she acknowledged she had handled the gun too.
And you handled it?
Yeah, we both handled it.
Okay.
Then she told detectives the gun went off, and she, quote, ran up to him.
You guys are fighting and the gun goes off and he's shot at that point?
Yes.
And then what happens after that?
And blood everywhere. I ran up to him.
But then she said they had both been in the bed the whole time.
Can you say that for me?
Sure.
So, how close were you and Nick when all this was going on? It's like, just stand right there. Are we right here?
When all this going on, we're like really
No, I'm just like right here.
But you guys on the bed.
No, we're on the bed. We laying down, we fussing, we talking. We go from on top of each other to on top of each other, from on the side of the bed to getting up on top of the bed.
That's the tussling.
Yes.
Okay. I thought we were still standing.
No, we never really stood up.
No, it was just
we in the bed going back and forth.
Shelton told detectives she pulled Harrison off the bed and onto the floor after he was shot.
He was on the bed, or was he end up on the floor?
No, he was on the bed. I pulled him on the floor once I went to the
get help.
I pulled him on the floor because he's breathing.
If they did tussle on the bed, it didn't appear to disturb Shelton's long, fake fingernails. In the hallway back at the hotel, they were all there except for her right pointer finger. Police detained Shelton for 3.5 hours that morning at the hotel, where they let her call her mother to come meet her, and at the 8th District Police Station, where they let her go to the bathroom. When she came out, most of the fingernails were gone, and she was wiping her hands with a tissue. 50 minutes after Shelton's bathroom break, crime lab technicians finally arrived to collect her DNA and gunshot residue samples. The report notes she didn't have any residue on her hands because she had already washed them. Then her lawyer came in and the police let her go. Harrison's sister-in-law, Sauda Moore, feels police treated Shelton with kid gloves because she's a 5'2" woman and Nick was a 6 218-pound man.
If the roles were reversed, Nicholas would have went down there handcuffed. They would have tested him immediately. He would have been locked up immediately.
But some missteps aside, forensic scientist Peter Diachuk says NOPD collected some significant evidence. First, Harrison's hands were bagged, so his gunshot residue test wouldn't be tainted. It showed he had no primer residue on his hands.
You can't fire that gun essentially without getting primer residue on yourself. And that's the bottom line.
Diachuk says the entry wound on Harrison's forehead is even more telling. The autopsy report says the wound showed no stippling or soot markings, which would come from a gun firing at close range.
The lack of those two items immediately alerts us that the gun was fairly far away, at least arm's distance, if not more.
And that was enough for NOPD Detective Miles Guerreri to have Shelton arrested in Slidell on January 22, 2023, brought to New Orleans January 24th, and booked on second-degree murder. And yet 6 months later, District Attorney Jason Williams' office refused to press charges, citing lack of evidence. Harrison's father, Freddie, never understood why the case never even went to a grand jury.
How do you not at least bring that to trial and let the jury decide, How do you just say, no, we're not going to do it?
The DA's office was supposed to give us its closed case file in September under the state's public records law, but never did. When I told DA Williams we were about to do a story, he reopened the case and said he could no longer comment on an open investigation. Now he tells Nick's parents the case is finally going to the grand jury.
There was complete silence until you started poking around, and then now they say they say it's a slam dunk and they're gonna push forward with it.
Diachuk warns there's more evidence that must be considered.
I think everyone should review any crime scene sketches and photographs regarding the bloodstain pattern analysis, or to do a bloodstain pattern analysis.
He says DNA evidence that was collected from the trigger, magazine, and grip of the Glock could also help settle who pulled the trigger. And an NOPD database shows results for 2 DNA samples were returned by the state crime lab back in 2023.
It's just hard to see that New Orleans allow somebody to be killed and you have evidence. You have evidence. I cry every day, sir, every day, and my son deserves justice.
2 days after this story aired, Shelton was indicted on a second-degree murder charge. She pled not guilty. Her trial is set for January 2026.
When we come back, our Houston team looks into why some consumers are saying a medical savings plan is not what it appears to be. Thousands of consumers nationwide signed up for a health savings plan that federal investigators are now calling a fraud. After reports by our team in Texas and an FBI raid that froze the company's assets, consumers hope they'll be able to get at least some of their money back.
I'm investigative reporter Jeremy Rogowski with KHOU in Houston, where Health Matching Account Services, or HMA, is headquartered. The company promised the, quote, ultimate medical savings product for people looking to cover out-of-pocket bills. But many consumers say it held their money hostage.
How can a company like this work?
Alvaro Ledesma is one frustrated retiree. He says every month he pays $84 into his health savings account.
Very frustrating.
But says he hasn't always been able to use that money to cover out-of-pocket medical costs.
It's like I don't have it. So I'm frustrated.
The company is Health Matching Account Services. Online, HMA calls itself, quote, the ultimate medical savings product.
Because it will award you up to $2 or more in medical matching into your HMA for every $1 that you contribute into it.
And initially, some customers say,
it was great. It was wonderful.
Paying for medical bills was smooth.
at first it was easy because you had a debit card. You go to the doctor, they take it as payment, it went through, it was fine. The pharmacy, it was fine.
But then HMA did away with the debit cards and changed the rules, requiring customers to pay up front and try to get reimbursed later.
Ugh.
And that's when she and many others say things went downhill. HMA began declining reimbursement claims.
It's a mess. I mean, it's a mess. It's a waste of time. And I feel very tricked.
More than 100 customers complained to the Better Business Bureau, which revoked HMA's membership and gave the company a failing grade.
They just don't pay. And they make up whatever cockamamie excuse they can to not pay.
Attorney Alex Loftus filed this class action lawsuit against the company, alleging breach of contract.
The problem is that HMA got the money. They got exactly what they wanted. They got the $5,000, the $20,000, whatever it was per person. Then they changed it. And it doesn't work that way.
And there's another problem, customers say, buried in the fine print of the contract, which says if they ever fail to pay their monthly contribution, their account will be terminated and any remaining balance will be relinquished to HMA. In other words, they forfeit everything they put in.
If I cancel, I won't see that money.
These customers say it backs them in a corner, and so reluctantly every month they continue to pay.
It almost feels like you did a deal with the mafia. There's no other word to describe it. It's so frustrating.
HMA in this office building near Uptown declined to do an interview. So we paid the company a visit, but had no luck tracking down the owners. Nobody home. Now, the company did email us a statement which says, because that lawsuit is pending, we cannot comment on the specific allegations of the litigation or any associated complaints. However, we categorically deny the allegations and will vigorously defend against these claims in court. We remain committed to our vision to be the leader in healthcare affordability. A team of FBI agents seized boxes of files, computers, and other evidence from the offices of Health Matching Account Services, loading it all up in a van outside the company's headquarters on Woodway Drive.
I'm very excited and I'm very happy.
It's welcome news for HMA customers like Alvaro Ledesma, who says he put nearly $5,000 into a health savings account, but had trouble getting claims paid. Then he felt held hostage because the fine print says if he stopped paying in, his account would be closed.
They're just forcing you to do something that you don't want to do.
HMA had promised to not only match customer contributions, but to double those dollars over time.
There was never any matching.
He's attorney Alex Loftus,
It was entirely fraudulent. It was a false promise.
who filed a class action lawsuit against HMA and says the scope of the alleged scheme is massive.
There was approximately 40,000 customers in HMA. That would mean that $200 million went into HMA, and then of which very little apparently was paid out in claims.
Loftus says he's been working with federal investigators, and since our first story, company insiders have come forward.
And thanks to your reporting, people were very aware of the work I was doing, and an employee that was terminated came to me, and I was able to connect that employee with the Department of Justice. And then she actually gave them the keys to the facility so they could raid it.
The FBI raid gives customers like this retiree new hope. Do you think you'll ever see your money back?
Before I have doubt, now I'm hoping yes.
After we reported on the FBI raid of HMA, customers from across the country began reaching out.
It was like watching a movie. I'm like, are you serious?
Gabby Denny says she signed up with HMA for its promise of doubling health savings account contributions over time. The single mom put in nearly $10,000, but says she always got the runaround in getting claims paid.
My son's orthodontist has not been paid.
You're on the hook for that bill?
Mm-hmm. Yep, upwards of $6,000.
Oh, it's a horrible mess, yeah.
Lana McCowan is a retiree who says she's out $4,000 she put into HMA, plus a $1,700 root canal bill.
It's been a nightmare, a total nightmare. I cried. I sat down and cried a couple of times over thinking, what did I do this for?
They both received letters from the FBI saying they're possible victims of a federal crime. In court filings, the federal government accuses HMA owners Regina Gorog and her son Elliot of running a fraudulent Ponzi investment scheme, with messages allegedly sent by Elliot saying, "It's my Ponzi scheme, I can do what I want, LOL."
It angers me, to be truthful with you, that somebody would do something like this.
The feds also allege HMA had only a fraction of the money to cover customer accounts. Court documents show more than 8,000 HMA customers at one point had a total account balance of $33 million, but the company only had $130,000 in the bank. In this temporary restraining order, the government has frozen HMA's bank accounts to preserve what's left.
It's emotionally draining and trying on you, you know? Justice to me, I want the money back. I want my money back.
A company spokesperson denies the allegations in the class action lawsuit and says it will vigorously defend itself in court. As for the criminal investigation, an attorney for HMA co-owner Regina Gorog did not return our calls. Elliot Gorog's attorney denies this was a Ponzi scheme, saying the company paid some $20 million in claims over the past few years.
Up next, driverless cars are becoming more popular across the country, but a new investigation shows safety on the streets may be at risk. Lawmakers in Georgia are considering new regulations involving driverless cars. You'll see why after this report from our team in Atlanta.
I'm Liza Lucas in Atlanta, and lawmakers are raising critical questions around safety and accountability as self-driving cars continue to expand across metro Atlanta. The conversation also continues to grow following new videos we obtained revealing what's at stake.
Stop sign out. Lights flashing, a Waymo rolls past. 11 Alive obtained multiple videos showing the self-driving cars illegally passing Atlanta public school buses. The district reporting 6 violations to date. Between Atlanta and Austin, Texas, the cases are triggering federal scrutiny as Waymo continues expanding across the country.
One of my goals has been to make Fulton County and the state of Georgia the autonomous vehicle capital of the world, and we're well on our way.
Fulton County Chairman Rob Pitts says he's an advocate for autonomous vehicle innovation, but these incidents raise concerns. While the county has no regulatory authority over Waymo or Atlanta streets, Pitts says a temporary pause during pickup and drop-off times may be necessary to make changes and avoid a potential tragedy.
I think it's in everybody's best interest.
Late Friday, Waymo announced it will file a voluntary software recall in response to the school bus incidents. The company identifying an issue where the AV may initially slow or stop for a school bus, but proceed anyway. Waymo says a November 17th update has improved performance, and it's continuing to investigate and make more changes as needed. But Georgia State Senator Rick Williams says that's not good enough.
We truly and plainly can see them riding right past a school bus.
Williams is one of the authors of Addie's Law, which increased penalties for illegally passing a stopped school bus. He says he's drafting a bill to address oversight of AVs. But he's not waiting until the legislative session to demand change, calling on state and federal leaders to ground the vehicles now.
Complete stoppage. If there's an issue with them rolling past a school bus, and I see school buses out from 5:30 in the morning till sometimes 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. No, it's too dangerous at all hours.
Liza Lucas, 11 Alive News.
I'm Sierra Putman in Indianapolis, where an Indiana judge just ordered the demolition of a multi-million-dollar duplex, and it's occupied. This all because of a legal fight between the builder and an HOA. Welcome to Water's Edge.
We just liked it. Just felt like home. This is the view that I don't have.
Sam Lash and his wife moved into the waterfront community in Fishers to be close to the grandkids and the water.
We had a pretty decent view, I think, and now we don't.
Admittedly, Sam never had a sweeping view, but now he says this duplex blocks more than it should. HOA President Harold Warden says the building is too wide.
The building is about 11.5 feet wider than it should be.
I mean, 11.5 feet doesn't sound like much.
Well, it does when it directly blocks your view of the water.
What we're talking about is 3.5 feet.
Tarek Merchaud says the building isn't that wide. He represents builder Michael Merchaud, who owns MHM Investments and also works for Integra Builders. The duplex's foundation was poured in November 2023. That set off a dispute over the HOA's building standards. This is a fight over the setback. When Merchaud first bought the property, the HOA required 15 feet between the property line and the building. But now it requires a 20-foot space. That's 5 extra feet on either side of the building. So after months of back and forth, the builder sued both the HOA and its president.
So the HOA didn't file a lawsuit?
Absolutely not. We were trying to work it out. We took it as him just trying to bully his way through the process.
We decided to stand our ground.
The builder's move backfired. Hamilton County Judge David Najjar sided with the HOA. He ordered the builder to pay more than $70,000 in fees and expenses. He also wrote the only way to serve the public interest is to uphold the HOA's rules and require the company to remove the homes. Demolition of the nearly $2.2 million duplex could take place as early as February.
How often does that happen?
Not very often. It's extremely rare.
The judge also wrote the harm to the builder is almost entirely self-inflicted and could have been avoided. The company chose to keep building despite the lawsuit and the court's warning that demolition was possible.
Why proceed when you know the building could be demolished?
I think that goes to the weight of the size of the builder that we're talking about here. This is not some institutional large builder that we're talking about. Just simply leaving that work unfinished for the amount of time that it could take also wasn't feasible. Something had to happen.
Not only was the duplex built, but the builder also moved 2 families into the homes.
Did they know that this was a possibility when they moved in?
They knew of the litigation. I don't think anybody thought that this was where we would end up.
With the families in mind, Judge Najjar hinted destruction could be avoided if the 2 sides could reach an agreement.
Do you think that's a possibility?
Based on the builder's current actions, I don't know.
Both sides say they're willing to negotiate, but the builder may still appeal.
We have no choice but to take this case as far as it needs to go to get a just result.
Indiana's Supreme Court?
If they would accept it.
Neighbors just want it settled.
Do you hope the house is demolished?
I feel sorry for the people that live there, but it obviously would give us a better view.
They hope enforcement will ensure the builder follows the rules when developing this final plot at the water's edge. Sierra Putman, 13 Investigates.
Coming up, rising prices at one international airport are funding equipment that's still sitting in boxes. More on that next. Welcome back to Investigation Nation. We're looking at some of our team's top stories in 2025. Now to Minnesota and an investigation into a heart transplant, a tragedy, and a family's search for answers.
I'm AJ Legault in Minnesota. At one of the nation's leading hospitals, our investigation uncovered serious questions about a cutting-edge device used in organ transplants nationwide.
At one of the most prestigious medical institutions in the world.
They're a crown jewel of the state of Minnesota.
A KARE 11 investigation uncovered a story they don't want told.
I don't want bad publicity.
A story buried.
Are you saying Mayo put public relations over patient safety?
Quite frankly, I don't know how else to interpret that answer.
A story about secrets and a promise.
They're not going to take a marginal carton.
A promise?
Meth overdose.
A family says was broken.
We were told that this was a perfect heart.
KARE 11 investigates the perfect heart.
Look at this.
Walks down memory lane.
This is our wedding.
For Noah Leopold's wife, Michelle.
We had a beautiful reception.
And proud parents, Norman.
I think this was Noah at his bar mitzvah.
And Karen.
Modest. He graduated summa cum laude.
A lawyer, like his parents, Noah was an overachiever and overconfident. overcomer.
At the age of 7, he got cancer.
Noah spent life battling complications from the chemo. By his 40th birthday, his heart was failing. He needed a transplant and wanted it from the best, but told Mayo's doctors there was something he did not want: the heart from a drug overdose. Noah is told by a Mayo ICU doctor in this recorded conversation he doesn't need to rush. There was time, and the transplant team wanted to find him the perfect heart.
You'll be involved in that conversation. Anyone who's had a drug overdose or something like that is considered a high-risk donor.
Not 2 weeks later, Mayo told Noah they had his new heart. He was taken into surgery, and his heart was removed.
And then something horribly went wrong.
Doctors discover the donor heart is too large, a significant mismatch. It starts uncontrollably bleeding and then just falls apart.
They told us that the heart didn't make it and that he didn't have a heart at all.
Days later, Mayo transplanted a different heart, but Noah suffered a brain bleed.
We never expected to leave there without him.
And his family was forced to make the hardest of decisions.
It's still hard to believe.
Now the pain never goes away.
No.
The pain and the questions, like what happened and why. Carol Levin's search for answers takes us to the mountains of Idaho.
Who's the deceased?
Where police video reveals Noah received the very type of heart he did not want.
Heroin? Is there heroin? Meth overdose.
We all knew that that's not what Noah would have wanted.
Noah got the heart of a meth addict.
Brandon Thompson, the family's attorney, has brought a federal lawsuit against Mayo claiming medical negligence, negligent non-disclosure, and medical battery.
The lawsuit contends that Mayo denied Noah critical information that he asked about and had a right to know, that the heart being put into his body came from the victim of a drug overdose.
Mayo had an obligation to tell him that, and they didn't.
In its response to the lawsuit, Mayo denied all those claims. They did inform Noah the heart had risk factors for diseases like hepatitis and HIV, and he consented to the operation. Mayo declined Carol Levin's interview request, instead sending a statement that says in part, "We follow applicable medical standards of care, guidance of national organizations that oversee organ donation and procurement, and the privacy rights of organ donors who give the ultimate gift to patients."
Minnesota law is very clear.
Thompson points to the Minnesota Patients' Bill of Rights, which mandates patients be given by their physicians complete and current information about their treatment.
That's the law.
Thompson contends there's something else Mayo failed to tell Noah. The donor heart was being transported via OCS Heart in a Box.
That allows transplant teams to keep the organs alive, beating and breathing between the donor and recipient instead of storing them on ice.
The cutting-edge technology expands the donor pool to hearts that previously would not have been considered as options because of travel time and distance. When the Idaho overdose heart came out of the device at Mayo, that's when the problems were discovered.
And what the surgeon describes in the operative note is that the tissue was almost falling apart in his hands.
Would you raise your right hand, please, doctor? You solemnly swear the testimony.
In this videotaped deposition, Mayo's surgeon, Dr. Villavicencio, says he's not sure why the heart fell apart, but he has a suspicion.
I suspect that there might be micro holes, that caused this.
Microscopic tears, he wrote in his operation notes, caused by the OCS Heart in a Box.
Does this event give you any concern about the use of OCS for other donor hearts?
Well, it gives me a concern, of course. We remember our bad experiences.
In case of a bad experience, the FDA has a database called MAUD that encourages reporting of issues related to medical devices. Carol Levin found 9 reports about the OCS device. But in the year and a half since Noah died, no report about his case. In his deposition, the Mayo surgeon was asked why he did not report it.
Well, I don't want bad publicity.
He did not want bad publicity. In court papers, Mayo calls the bad publicity accusations false and contends there was not enough evidence to report it to the FDA.
We didn't know it was going to be his last birthday.
Noah's family says he was denied the ability to make his own informed decision about what constituted a perfect heart.
We want to make sure that this doesn't happen to anybody else.
Mayo initially told us that they planned to defend this case through trial, but after our story aired, they reached a confidential settlement with Noah's family. Now, to be clear, there's no evidence that the heart-in-a-box device caused this heart to fall apart. When contacted, the manufacturer said they could not comment, and to date, Mayo has not made any reports to the mandatory federal database that could prompt an official investigation.
I'm Nate Morabito in Charlotte, where we discovered people who fly in and out of this busy airport help buy millions of dollars of equipment that's largely sat unused for the past 2 years. And we found that failure came at the same time the city started charging travelers more to use Charlotte Douglas International Airport. Higher parking rates and airline costs.
Yeah, there's a lot more increases than decreases.
As passengers paid more at CLT, the sixth busiest airport in the world spent $3.5 million on new radios, most of which are still not in use. Wow. 2 years later.
And nobody's been raising their alarm until, I guess, today.
Jari Parker is one of tens of millions of passengers who use Charlotte Douglas International every year.
I've been right here.
Yeah, we're here, honey. Travelers who help fund the airport's operations through airline rates and charges, concessions, and parking fees. Parker says before he spends any of his own money, he always does his research ahead of time.
I will also make sure that whenever I do get the item, it's going to work properly, because that's basics.
Imagine his disappointment when he learned the airport bought 700 radios to help critical staff communicate before making sure they were fully compatible.
Yeah, it sounds highly concerning.
WCNC Charlotte requested and received internal emails that reveal an extremely challenging and frustrating project, the result of an unexpected compatibility issue between the new radio consoles and the airport's existing phone system, something the vendor originally assured the airport wouldn't be a problem. Despite what we found, CLT initially dismissed concerns. When we asked for an interview with the airport, a spokesperson told us, in the airport's perspective, there is not a story here, and said this is not a significant issue, telling us when it comes to the government, sometimes things just take time.
Charlotteans deserve full transparency and accountability, and we are asking all the right questions.
City Council member Dimple Ajmira shared a different perspective.
I was not aware of it.
It's a lot of money. After we alerted the budget chair of what we uncovered.
When we have investment that's just collecting dust, it is concerning.
Charlotte City Council first approved the project as part of a citywide radio contract in 2019, with Charlotte Douglas actually receiving the radios in late 2023. As of mid-November, the airport had programmed and deployed fewer than 25% of them.
There is a plan to correct the delays, and if that plan is not implemented, certainly there is an action we can take.
In the days after we interviewed Councilmember Ajmira, a CLT spokesperson answered WCNC Charlotte's questions. The airport blamed the delays on early rollout decisions made by a former team member who records showed the city fired in August, and technical challenges during programming and activation. The spokesperson added, since existing radios continue to work, at no time was the airport's radio network or its ability to maintain safe and reliable communications compromised. All radios are now expected to be upgraded by sometime in 2026.
It's a shame.
Years later than originally planned. Nate Morabito, WCNC Charlotte.
I'm Bob Siegel in Indianapolis, where we've been reporting on a cardiologist facing allegations of malpractice. He's accused of conducting unnecessary heart procedures on some of his patients. And now his challenges have shifted from an operating room to a courtroom.
Imagine being subjected to dozens of unnecessary heart procedures. Our team in Indiana investigates.
At the time of this deposition,
can you please state your name for the record?
Sure, Edward Harlemert.
Dr. Edward Harlemert was chief of cardiology at Witham Hospital in Lebanon. But today, the doctor does not work here anymore. Witham confirmed for 13 News the longtime cardiologist and hospital have parted ways. His recent departure comes after 13 Investigates reported several of Dr. Harlemert's patients have filed malpractice complaints. They accuse the cardiologist of conducting unnecessary heart procedures. Medical records obtained by 13 News show some of Dr. Harlemert's patients were subjected to dozens of heart catheterizations ordered by the doctor, and some received dozens of stents implanted in their arteries. Are you troubled by what you see there?
Yes.
Medical experts consulted by 13 Investigates said that is very unusual.
Treatment did not follow the standard of care.
That's not standard of care.
Standard of care, no, absolutely. This wasn't standard of care.
Over the past 30 years, Dr. Harlemert has treated thousands of patients at Community Health, IU Health, and most recently Witham Health. And the care he provided at all three has come under scrutiny, forcing the cardiologist to explain his medical decisions.
If it is an unnecessary stent, then that could be unethical, but it's not necessarily.
So why exactly did he leave Witham? Well, the hospital told 13 Investigates it does not comment on personnel matters, and Harlemert and his attorneys have not returned multiple calls and emails from 13 News. But we do know the doctor's departure comes as he's dealing with several legal setbacks. In January, a state medical review panel unanimously found Dr. Harlemert failed to comply with the appropriate standard of care involving one of his patients. And a few weeks ago, a judge in Boone County also ruled against him, agreeing with the medical review panel's findings that the doctor engaged in malpractice that caused injuries to his patient. That patient is Carlotta Lawton.
It's been rough.
Carlotta saw Dr. Harlemert at Witham Hospital about 5 years ago. She went to the hospital for a migraine headache, but she says Dr. Harlemert diagnosed her with something else.
He looks at me and goes, "Oh, you're having a massive heart attack."
Dr. Harlemert conducted tests and determined Carlotta's LAD, or left anterior descending artery, was 75% blocked. He inflated a tiny balloon and implanted a stent to open the blockage. But when 13 Investigates showed Carlotta's medical records to other cardiologists,
right here in the middle of the LAD,
so they could see exactly what Dr. Harlemert saw, they did not detect nearly enough blockage to justify placing a stent in Carlotta's chest. One of those medical experts consulted by 13 News said, in that LAD, no narrowing that would have warranted a stent whatsoever. My jaw dropped when I saw that. The Indiana Medical Review Panel came to the same conclusion, finding the care Dr. Harlemert provided Carlotta amounted to malpractice.
I'm so happy, but it's not over yet. It's not over.
It's not over for Carlotta because a procedure from Dr. Harlemert resulted in serious complications.
She started developing a hematoma while I was fixing her artery.
I lost so much blood.
The complications left her bedridden and unable to walk.
My leg is like it's frozen.
Carlotta is one of 11 patients to file formal complaints against Dr. Harlemert. So far, 2 of those cases resulted in a finding of malpractice, 4 found in favor of the doctor, and 5 cases are still pending. Attorney Justin Kuhn represents several of the patients.
We're not saying Dr. Harlemert has treated every one of his patients poorly, right? There's cases where he might have done everything by the book. But we know of multiple cases where he's been found to have committed malpractice by a medical review panel. And these are not close call cases. This is, clear misconduct.
What is Dr. Harlemert doing next? Well, he recently filed paperwork with the Indiana Secretary of State's office to establish 2 new companies, one called Harlemert Heart and Vascular LLC and another called Harlemert Heart Consulting LLC. A new website says he's now accepting new patients, despite findings by the state that he's engaged in malpractice.
Dr. Harlemert is still able to practice in Indiana, correct?
Correct.
Do you have any concerns about that?
I certainly do. So far, there's been no action against his license that we're aware of. So I hope that changes.
Carlotta is hoping for that too.
I just don't want this to happen to someone else.
We've reached out to both Dr. Harlemert and his attorneys by phone and by email, but they did not respond. Several years ago, one of his attorneys told us Dr. Harlemert has always been committed to providing quality care to patients, and he treats patients based on their unique circumstances, his expertise, and the tools available. In Indianapolis, I'm Bob Siegel.
A drug that is legal in most states is surrounded by controversy. That story is up next. In more than 40 U.S. states, kratom is legal. You may have seen the signs, you may have heard of the controversy. Our team in Idaho investigates what some people call the miracle herb.
I'm Morgan Romero in Boise. You've probably seen it advertised around town, but you might not know what it is. Kratom. It's a plant-based product promoted as a natural fix for pain, anxiety, even opioid withdrawal. But it's completely unregulated and increasingly being misused. So I set out to find out, is it actually safe?
It blows me away. It's everywhere.
Once you're familiar with that, or metragenine, kind of the other name, like you'll see it, it's like, oh, there it is, there it is.
This is essentially a medical product that is poorly labeled, that people are treating like a caffeine shot.
Drive down any main road in Boise, you'll see vape shops, smoke shops, even convenience stores selling kratom products. Kratom is an herbal extract from the leaves of a Southeast Asian tree, which contain 2 main psychoactive compounds, mitragynine and 7-hydroxymitragynine. For centuries, workers in Thailand used it to have more strength and endurance during long, hot days.
What was found about 20 years ago was that kratom makes a chemical that's very similar to our prescription opioids, and that gives people a sense of well-being.
At low doses, it has a stimulant effect. At higher doses, it acts like a painkiller. Trevor Helland took an ounce of kratom powder, like this, every day.
They literally gave me a scooper and just said, this many scoops of the powder. That's all I knew.
When he didn't take it, he says he went through debilitating withdrawals. Before ever taking kratom, Trevor battled drug and alcohol addiction for decades.
I was clean and sober 4 years, and then tried the kratom because I was told it was a safe alternative to opiates, and I still have back pain and everything. So I tried the kratom, and within a couple weeks, it shot me back into opiate addiction. It set me back. I lost everything.
For many people, and this is really where it came out as a very popular herbal product, is to treat chronic pain.
While it is not approved for medical use by the Food and Drug Administration, Dr. David Kroll, a University of Colorado Anschutz pharmacology professor, says kratom became popular during the opioid epidemic, specifically for people who had poor access to health care. Dr. Kroll says people also use kratom to try to wean off other substances. Kratom comes in many forms: dried powder, seltzers and shots, capsules and tablets, and liquid extract. In Idaho and federally, manufacturers aren't required to have warning labels or list dosing instructions or ingredients.
There's no general requirement, like for an over-the-counter drug product, that it tells you exactly what's in it, how much is in it.
I went into several shops selling kratom around Boise. How's it going? I'm good. Are you a manager or owner? While I found the majority of products do have some type of warning or disclaimer, some do not, and most don't have dosing instructions. That lack of information can be dangerous.
Remember, this is an opioid. The plant makes these chemicals in a way that they can bind to our opioid receptors, the same way that morphine, oxycodone, fentanyl can.
The Drug Enforcement Administration warns at high doses, kratom can cause depression of breathing, hallucinations, confusion, and delusions, along with physical side effects like nausea, itching, shaking, dizziness, and sweating.
Can you overdose on kratom itself? You can, but it requires very high doses.
Dr. Kroll says kratom in tea or powder form is rarely deadly by itself, since the body limits its effects. But combining it with other drugs or taking too much can be risky. The Poison Control Hotline has received 129 reports from Idaho involving kratom products since 2020. Data from the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare shows 83 Idahoans have died from kratom-related drug overdoses between 2020 and 2024, and that number has been steadily rising. Most of those deaths were caused by a mixture of kratom and at least one other substance. The biggest concern right now? The rise of lab-made kratom byproducts, far stronger than nature intended.
The problem comes in, and it's kind of the American way, is to take the active constituent and concentrate it to make the product to have as big a bang as possible. And that's what's happened with kratom.
Semi-synthetic, highly concentrated 7-OH, this stuff can be found everywhere, and studies have found it can be several times more potent than morphine.
Putting the 7-OH on this compound makes it incredibly problematic and potentially deadly if you're taking other sedating products.
I mean, just past several years, really, just been seeing a significant increase in kratom.
North Point Recovery in Boise has more addicts coming in, checking the kratom box in their paperwork.
And when it's marketed as, hey, take this to stop drinking, and it's like, oh, okay, that sounds very appealing. It's like, okay, and might work for a short duration, but then once they develop that dependence, what we're seeing usually is like a dual addiction. And we've had patients, it takes up to 30 plus days, for them to fully come off of 7-OH.
The FDA came out with a warning about 7-OH this summer, calling it a public health threat. The agency recommended the DEA classify it as a Schedule I controlled substance, putting it in the same category as heroin. But currently at the federal level, 7-OH and kratom in general are legal and unregulated.
Without being regulated, I mean, it could be any level of potency, we don't really know.
Several cities, counties, and states around the country have started banning 7-OH and regulating kratom in recent years. Idaho is not on that list.
I can't believe it's legal in Idaho.
The only requirement? You have to be at least 18 or 21 to enter most of the shops we went into selling kratom, except for convenience stores. Would you like to see an overall ban of this substance?
Yeah, I would. That would be great.
In my ideal world, 7-OH and concentrated mitragynine products would be off the market. My ideal world, patients could still have access to the powder, make the tea themselves at home, and treat their pain, especially for those in our rural areas and underserved areas where it's very difficult to see a healthcare provider.
How did being addicted to kratom affect your life?
It affected every aspect of my life. My relationships suffered. I lost about 30 pounds from it, 30, 40 pounds. I didn't think as straight.
Today,
this is where I spend most of my time.
Trevor has been sober for 6 years.
Doing really good now, yeah, loving life.
What would your message be for people that are considering using kratom?
Don't use it. Don't use it. There's a lot safer alternatives. Medications, if you're trying to come off of other opiates, go try AA meetings. I know a lot of people there. Rehabs. I would not suggest kratom. I would not suggest kratom for anything, really.
An Idaho state lawmaker introduced a bill in 2021 looking to ban adulterated or synthetic kratom products in Idaho. That bill didn't make it out of the House Agriculture Committee. And that state lawmaker tells me she has not yet been approached about introducing another kratom-related bill this upcoming legislative session.
Thank you for watching Investigation Nation and supporting investigative journalism. Our reporters are always digging for the truth and holding the powerful accountable. Check back with us in 2026 for more stories that serve the public interest.